Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. South Louisiana Bank, it's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
I was coaching softball at Vanderbilt and was the athletic director at Vanderbilt. We won 5 state championships in a row. We won 118 ball games in a row, which is still a national record, I think a high school record. Morton really began HTV by coming over to Vanderbilt and filming some of our softball games. I've been named, I think, 4 Hall of Fames, the Vanderbilt Catholic High Hall of Fame, the Softball Hall of Fame in the state of Louisiana, the Coaches Hall of Fame in the state of Louisiana, the Bayou Region Hall of Fame. And I would have never got those awards and notoriety if it wouldn't have been for HTV. And I'm very appreciative of that.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology, and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. South Louisiana Bank, it's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lorraine Falls Studios right here at HTV. I'm Martin Falls, and for the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to hear from both candidates for Terrebonne Parish President. It's going to be a little different format this time around. We don't have 9 candidates. We don't have 5 candidates. We don't have 3 candidates. It's down to 2. It's down to Mr. Jason Bergeron and Mr. Darren Guidry. So there will be no opening or closing statements. People have told me they're tired of hearing that. They want to know who is qualified to run this parish. So we have accumulated many questions. I've talked with many people in government. I've talked to you out there on the internet. You've sent me questions, and we have questions that pertain to running the parish as the parish president. Once again, no time clock. We've thrown the time clock out. We're going to give candidates a chance to give robust answers, but we will allow the candidate who is not directly answering the question to jump in. This will stop filibustering, and it'll also give us some good hearty debate if one of the candidates disagrees with something that the other candidate answers. Also, during this debate, we'll give the candidates a chance to make right on rumors that may have been put out on them about this race. Should be a pretty good 90 minutes. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're jumping right into the questions. Don't go away.
I was coaching softball at Vanderbilt and was the athletic director at Vanderbilt. We won 5 state championships in a row. We won 118 ball games in a row, which is still a national record, I think a high school record. Martin really began HTV by coming over to Vanderbilt and filming some of our softball games. I've been named, I think, 4 Hall of Fames, the Vanderbilt Catholic High Hall of Fame, the Softball Hall of Fame in the state of Louisiana, the Coaches Hall of Fame in the state of Louisiana, the Bayou Region Hall of Fame. And I would have never got those awards and notoriety if it wouldn't have been for HTV. And I'm very appreciative of that.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology, and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. South Louisiana Bank, it's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates, for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, here we are. We're looking at the two candidates that are running for parish president of Terrebonne Parish. On your left on TV is Darren Guidry, a councilman in District 6. On your right, Jason Bergeron, a businessman here in the parish. So let's just start right off the bat. No opening statement. So the most simple question I could come up with for the day would be, and Darren, we'll let you start off with this one. You know, because a lot of people go, why does anybody put themselves up for public office? It's tough. It's grueling. The rumors, the everything else, the family stuff. Why'd you run?
Well, I'm a businessman, and my wife and I have always worked with people. And most recently, we owned a newspaper called the Tri-Parish Times and Gumbo Entertainment Guide. And we served readers in the paper, and we covered issues in parish government. We covered problems in parish government. And frankly, when I saw the newspaper, I wanted to be part of the solution. And that's really why I ran for Terrebonne Parish Council a year after I sold my newspaper. And for the last 8 years, my goal has been to service the people who voted for me and to try to get as much done as I can for them. And we've done that. When I ran 8 years ago, the number one issue was flood and drainage. And I had just gotten off of serving 8 years on the levee board, and I understood that we needed to keep water out, the storm surge from coming in, and we were doing that and accomplishing that. But we also needed to get the water out. And so 8 years ago, I got elected because I wanted to make a difference and fix the number one problem, which was drainage in our area. And so did our parish president, Mr. Gordon Duff. Now, we worked together as a council and a parish president to achieve that goal. We haven't flooded in the last 8 years. I mean, we had a storm that came before that flooded 10,000 homes in Hurricane Rita. But we had another storm that came with pretty much the same storm surge and only flooded one home, and I think that was in Lafourche Parish. So we've got flooding control under wraps. Right now, the polling says it's not the number one issue. Flood control is now the number 5 issue. So we need to now start tackling some of those other issues 1 through 4, which include improving our community, which include improving our infrastructure, which includes our quality of life. We've done a lot towards quality of life in the last 8 years, but we could do a lot more. And so that's why I'm running, because, I know what needs to be done. And better than that, I know how to get it done, how to do it. And I just need to get there. So.
All right. Very good. Mr. Bergeron, you were on a lot of different boards, a lot of committees. You were enjoying the good life, then you jump in. Of course, it's always grueling to jump in for public service, but the ultimate thing is, what made you decide you wanted to jump in?
I've said it before. It started with a calling. I just felt in my heart it was something that was a necessity. As I've worked my businesses and in the community for the last 25 years, I've been through every process of local, state, federal government, through the issues that we fight. And I felt it was time to do things differently. And I felt like as a whole, our parish and our nation feel the same way. And so through this process of deciding in early 21 to have that calling, I had that calling and felt it's something I need to do. And then have us go through one of the worst storms in U.S. history, to see the people struggling after the fact and people not getting the needs met that they needed, and just, not seeing government available or accessible. I just felt that it was time for somebody to get in there and do it differently. As I've worked and led the organizations that I've worked in the community for the last 20 years as a non-elected official, I've been giving my heart and soul to this community to make it better every day. Working with organizations like SCIA and the Chamber, the Committee of 100 of Louisiana, working and seeing what we can do to grow our region economically, to help our citizens have opportunities. And so I'm a guy that doesn't come from a whole lot. And I am also the poster child that shows you that hard work and dedication and passion can achieve anything. And that's the message I want our residents to know, that it can be one person. It can be one vote. One person can make a difference. And I believe a passionate person and a passionate group can be undefeated. And so with this, it started off as kind of a want and evolved into a need. In the community projects that I've worked on, we've had to deal with government getting in the way, making things slower, stopping us, being a hindrance. And I think it's time for that not to happen. I think we need to be more business friendly. We need to be more visible and more transparent, have more transparency for our residents. They've got to see something as simple as the budget on the website to see how much money we collect and how much money we spend, instead of having to flip to a 256-page document. It's just time to make things easier. It's time for more common sense. It's time for change. It's time to do government differently. Us as a nation are talking about this on a regular basis, that it's time for government to be run differently, to be run more like a business. And that, with me creating 6 and currently running 4 businesses and helping thousands of other businesses that are multi-million-dollar companies be more successful, be more efficient, be more profitable, I could take that same skill set and do that in government and make us more efficient day one.
And I don't know, Martin, I don't know, he mentions businesses. I don't know what the size of these businesses are, but I've worked with a $258 million business in the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. Now, I came from business. 30 years I spent in the business. I know how business is done, and I came with the same exuberance as Mr. Bergeron is exhibiting, wanting to run government like a business. When I got on the levy board, I said, we're gonna run it like a business. But then you start to realize that government doesn't work exactly like a business. You can't run government like a business, but you can try to run a government business like. There are a lot of things in place that governments have to do. If we can build a gazebo downtown, and if we wanted to build a gazebo, I could go get my brother to build a gazebo, right? I don't need to give him specs. I just need to give him general designs. We change it up as we go. He builds it. He doesn't have to have any particular insurance or permits or bonds. We build the gazebo. We can do it very quickly on the fly. You have a government project. You got to bid out that gazebo. Now, what are the specs of the gazebo? You have to get all those specifications down pat. Because if you don't get the specifications down and somebody bids on it, and it's different specifications, then you're going to get sued, or they're going to charge you a lot more money. So then you have to get an engineer or an architect involved to design exactly what you're going to bid out. Then you go out to bid on that project. Well, you have multiple bidders, but wait, the first to bid, you have to be bonded, get a bonding insurance that guarantees you're going to finish the job. We've now eliminated a whole lot of contractors that could bid because they are not able to get bonded. That eliminates my brother-in-law. That eliminates any friends that I could get it done for cheap. That means people are going to charge a lot more who are bonded. Now you get a bonding company. They have to have a certain amount of insurance, right? $2 million worth of insurance. They have to be licensed. Then they build the gazebo. Well, you also have to give them a number of days, 180 days to build that gazebo. Well, they're also juggling a whole bunch of jobs. So they're going to take 180 days. then every rain day you get, they're going to come to you and say, well, it rained 20 days, I need to get more. Well, then you find out that the roots in an oak tree, that you can't put pillars like you're going to do. You have to do a concrete slab, put the pillars on the slab. That's a change order, right? If it's your brother-in-law, he just changes it. No big deal. Well, if it's a contractor, you now have to do a change order. Well, then they want to add extra days because that's a change order. So now you've got a project that where, number one, your brother-in-law could build, and it would only take maybe 6 months. Well, now you got a contractor involved, and it may take 18 months. It's the way government works, and I know that. You know, I know how to try to get, to shorten those processes by trying to get my bid specs done as much as possible so the change orders and the extensions don't happen. We can do that. You know, we can do projects quicker. We can't do it if it's a FEMA project, which is a lot of what we're getting criticized for, which is some of our FEMA recovery from the storms. We then have to go through a totally different process that FEMA requires, which adds even more time to that. Government cannot run like a business, but we can run it business-like. I know that. We're doing that, and I think we can do a better job of it, and that's what I'm going to do.
All right, let me give Mr. Bergeron a chance to answer that.
So the assumption is I don't understand government. And that's okay because I've been underestimated my entire life, being told I was too slow, too poor. You're from South Louisiana and nobody's intelligent down there. And so people may not know about me that I've worked in every parish-related entity in this parish supporting their IT infrastructure. Levy District, Port Commission, Airport Commission, 911, Sheriff's Office. I even installed the mail system for the parish. So when you look at that, I've actually helped these entities write bids. After I sold out of my technology company, for a year, I worked for a company that primarily did work for the Corps. And we dealt with disadvantaged business proposals and what it took to get bonded, to get everything together. And then you look at my experience before I was dealing with technology, everything from writing welding procedures to tearing down engines to drawing equipment in the oil and gas industry. And so when I talk about running government more like a business, it's being efficient. It's making real-time decisions. The gazebo that gets keep talking about is actually a bandstand. And that bandstand was almost halted because the parish had this requirement or that requirement. And here we are trying to give our solution, a project that we built as the Hatch grant to the parish, and we're getting resistance. And then we try to build kayak launches and buy a Terrebonne, and we get resistance because of water quality and because of other reasons that doesn't make any sense to why we can't build something and give it to the parish for free. And so when you struggle to give something to the parish for free, I could about imagine how hard it is to work with the parish when something isn't free. And I don't have to imagine because I've done it. And when I tried to do things to open businesses and was met with, this is not smooth and the parish needs to do a better job of this, I know we could run the parish with being more customer service oriented. We can be more efficient because I've integrated with the accounting system that was outdated in the mid-90s. I implemented a solution that works through the water system, but trash to report when garbage cans aren't picked up. We've integrated all that data. That's why I'm about to hit the ground running day one, implementing systems that nobody has the experience that I have to make sure we can put systems in place that are technology related, that are automated, that make people's jobs easier. Those are the things that I do every day for companies, and I help make them more efficient, more productive, and more profitable. And I'm going to do the same thing in government. Thank you.
All right, thank
And
you
I think,
both for that.
and one last thing is, though, I give it to Mr. Bergeron that he's a great IT guy, and I think as far as an IT, it'd be great. But IT and running 1,200 employees, it's a totally different thing.
Well, that's my next question. Let me get into it, and because we have a lot. And I promise no grass questions today. I wanted the audience to both see y'all smile, so that's a good thing. All right, so Terrebonne Parish's budget. Let's look at it realistically. 247, 248 million per year. You could argue those numbers, but it's $1 billion business over 4 years. Whoever gets elected, you got $1 billion budget in 4 years. So just to be quite frank, what makes each of you qualified to run a $1 billion business? Because that's the way I see it for 4 years. And it's a big business. And Who did I start off with last time? I want to be fair. Somebody.
You be next.
All right. Go ahead.
So
Jason.
it's interesting to assume that I'm just an IT guy. And again, I go back to being underestimated my entire life. I currently run 4 businesses. One's a telemedicine company that deals in occupational medicine. One's a business consulting company. One is a software development company that was just nationally recognized for the diversity and inclusion work that we do. And the last is an IT company. So not only have I led and run and managed those 4 businesses along with a couple other businesses, but I've also worked with Fortune 500 companies. I've led companies with thousands of employees. And so when it comes to running a business, it's as simple as setting people up for success, making things measurable so that you can then hold them accountable. And so whether you're dealing with a $250,000 budget or $1 billion budget, it's all about numbers. It's all black and white. One of the things a few of the things I have done is led organizations. And so when I led the chamber, I worked on reducing their budget and changed their bylaws. When I led Terranians, worked on their budget, did their bylaws. When I changed over the Lafourche Crime Stoppers over to Bayou Region Crime Stoppers, changed their bylaws, worked on their budget. And so I have a track record of leading organizations, no matter the budget size, and making them more efficient and cutting costs and making sure we're spending the money wisely. At the same time, not losing services, making sure we achieve all the goals that we set. And that's the experience I have. I have leadership experience of taking organizations to the next level and growing businesses from maybe 10 computers to start to 115 computers, multiple locations, 20 servers, employee growth in the hundreds of % growth, and dealing with employees and setting them up to be successful and saving 2 hours here and 4 hours there and paying for myself with the work that I do, where a company doesn't really pay anything for the services I offer, and then everything else is profitability. So I traveled the world. I've traveled the country. I work around with tons of people, tons of companies all over the place of all different sizes, and I've been able to make them be more successful. That's why I can scale. I'm a quick learner. I get in there, I figure something out, and then I could show other people. But it really goes back to setting our people up for success and then holding them accountable. I'm only as successful as my directors and my employees. I want to make sure I do everything I can to make them look good and make them be successful and work together as a team. There is no I in team. I don't have all the answers. My goal is to get the right people in the room, have a conversation, and fix issues, and have the residents' voice heard along with the employees.
All right, Darren, once again, $1 billion, that's a big budget. How would you handle it?
Well, I'd like to know which Fortune 500 company he ran, but I did run a major company. I worked for Guarantee Broadcast Corporation, which was one of the largest companies, a division of Guarantee Income Life Insurance with hundreds of employees. And Guarantee Broadcasting, actually, I came to Guarantee to operate some of their properties they purchased here when they purchased KCIL radio station. KCIL was a dying radio station, didn't have many listeners, didn't have many employees. We built that station from a station that billed less than $500,000 a year to building over $2 million a year with 30 employees. Then Hurricane Andrew hit. It was it was going over Florida, and it was expected to get into the Gulf Monday morning. I began calling first thing Monday morning generator companies because we had generators at the tower, but we had no generators in our studio. So I began calling. By 9 a.m., I got the very last generator that Welsh Generators had for rent. It was an 85 kW, could power the whole block. Our studio was right behind Terrebonne General Medical Center. And they started hooking up, our electrician began hooking up the generator outside the studio. And I remember it very clearly because people were passing by going, "What are you doing? You hooking it? Oh, that's for the storm? That's not coming here." And I kind of felt, for once, I felt like Noah might have felt building the ark and people saying the flood wasn't coming. But we installed the generator. We were prepared, whether the storm came or not. Well, guess what? The storm came just west of us and hit Terrebonne Parish very hard. And KCIL was the only radio station that stayed on the air before, during, and after the storm in 3 parishes. As a result, we were the information center for all 3 parishes, Terrebonne, Lafourche, and St. Mary, getting out the information because none of the other radio stations stayed on the air. That's the kind of leadership I bring to the parish president. We need a leader during our hurricanes that can not only lead us after the hurricane, but also lead us during the hurricane and before the hurricane. There's a lot of preparation that has to be done. I know how to do that. I've done that. And that's what makes me the best choice for parish president.
All right, let me do this. If anybody asks a question in their answer, I'm going to give the other person a chance. So he made a reference about a Fortune 500 company. I'll give you the floor, Jason.
That's what's interesting about this whole political process. So if I mistakenly said led, I'm saying basically I've led companies and I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. And so, I'm not perfect. I'm passionate. I'm going to say something. It might come in correctly. I've had 90-second answers get twisted into me hating an entire industry. And I'm passionate about what I do. I work very hard to come from nothing, living in a trailer with no college degree, and to teach myself technology and computers. Just in that alone. And then from there, being self-taught in business, learning everything the hard way, learning everything through hard work, dedication, sleepless nights, because I want to do everything I can to make sure I take care of the client. That's what I do every day. And so if you look for somebody that's going to be perfect in everything they say and not take ownership of what they say might be a mistake or might be misunderstood, I'm not your guy. I'm the guy that's going to tell you what I feel, and I may incorrectly say something sometimes, but that's okay because I'm not perfect. There's only one person that is perfect, and they don't walk the face of the earth anymore. And instead of pointing out what everybody else does wrong and what everybody else can or can't do, I want to talk about what I can do and what I will do for our parish. Because not only am I saying, I'm going to do this in January, I've been doing it for the last 20 years when I led Relay for Life, when I led Rotary, when I created an Alzheimer's board because we didn't have one, finding a need and addressing it and fixing the issue and getting there and doing it myself, rolling up my sleeves and working hard to leave everything I've touched better than what I found it. And so that's who I am as a person. That's who I am as a resident. That's what I'm going to be as a parish president. Is somebody that's going to give their all to every person every day. I want to hear every voice. I want to do everything we can to resolve as many issues, but I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take a team of people, the directors and the passionate employees in the parish. It's going to take the residents. It's going to take the nonprofits, all of which I've worked with and ran and created. I know how to do this stuff. I've been doing it for free, not elected. And now I feel like it's time for somebody with my skill set and the experience that I have to take our parish into the next 10 years, because we've been dying for the last 20. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Thank you.
All right, now let's keep the rebuttals quick. If you have anything else to say, Darren, or else I'll move to the next question.
No, you can move to the next
All right,
question.
thanks.
It's fine.
Next question. I heard you mention hurricanes. Personally, I've covered hurricanes since 1985. And I'm glad you said radio, because this TV station never left for a storm. We stayed up all the time. But my question is this. I've seen parish presidents who are strong. They got their senses about them. And a storm hits, they crumble. Some more than others. And I guess my point is, not everybody's cut out to be in a storm, especially a Cat 4 or a Cat 5. It is treacherous. So part of your job, when either one of y'all is elected, is to bring us through storm and to show strength and to show courage. And Darren, we'll let you lead off on this one. What is your plan for a storm, not only during the storm, but before and after the storm, so that people will know that Darren Guidry would be in charge?
Martin, that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people don't realize what goes into storm preparation. In fact, I was meeting today with one of our contractors that came on after the storm, 8 months after the storm. And I think it caused some of the delays because they weren't pre-positioned to handle things after the storm. And so what I told that contractor is I want to get them set up and pre-positioned so that way right after the storm we can begin that FEMA process and try to cut it down, because after the storm we had so much damage, and it's not anticipated. And it's the first time we were really hit by that big of a storm. And so we learned a lot as a government. And so I want to use some of those lessons moving forward. And there's a lot this government did good before the storm. Little things like, when we see that we're might be threatened by the storm, we go out and test our generators. Little things like prior to the storm, we make sure we pump down all of our areas because, we get these basins that are permitted to be pumped down to maybe like, a foot above sea level. Or, we can now pump them down to a foot below sea level because we know a lot of rain is coming. So we can do a lot of things beforehand. And of course, there's a series of when, we have to get with our department heads. We have to then start getting everybody to begin meeting at the EOC on a regular basis. When the storm is looking it's coming our way, then we make the EOC operational. We actually have to start manning our EOC 24 hours a day once we start opening shelters. And we have to have shelters available before we start issuing emergencies, because you can't issue a mandatory emergency unless you have shelters for people. And then not only with this particular storm, because it was hitting us, we had to evacuate a lot of people out of the area. That required a lot of transportation. So not only did we have to coordinate with like the school system to try to get some transportation, we also had to have drivers that could drive all the way to Monroe. Then we had an issue that the buses didn't have handicap requirements. We had a lot of elderly people who just, couldn't use the buses. So then we had to get buses with handicap accessible. Some of those we had to struggle with getting enough. We're going to make sure that we're pre-positioned ahead of time now based on what we learned. So that way we have all that available. That's just a little example, Martin. I probably could spend the whole hour doing that. But that kind of gives you an example of some of the preparations that we have to do before the storms. It's really important. The more preparation you do, the quicker you are to recover. And say what you can about our recovery. I can't judge it by any past storms because we've never had a storm like this. I can only judge it by what happened in Lake Charles the year before. Our congressmen tell us that we're leaps and bounds ahead of Lake Charles, and we were a year behind them. Our storm hit a year after theirs did. So judging by Lake Charles, I think we're doing pretty good.
All right, now I would ask on this question, probably not a re-rebuttal. Jason gets a chance to answer it, but we have so many more questions. But Jason, you get a chance at this one too. Go ahead, please, sir.
So, it's an old saying of everything goes great until you get punched in the mouth. And with the experience I've worked in, the organizations that I've worked in, you got to make decisions. There's a thing called the 70% rule. It's making a decision with 70% information, because by the time you get 100%, it's too late. And so fortunately, through my experience and my careers of managing, leading, and working with companies, I've worked on disaster recovery plans. And it's important to understand that you have a plan in place, but at the same time, you have to test that plan. So we need to get everybody in a room. We have to have conversations, and we have to talk about worst case scenarios. But we got to make sure that all the different first responder organizations and the nonprofits that we deal with all have a voice. After Ida, we did a lot of hurricane relief with the Hatch Grant. We were going throughout the parish for the 6 months after Ida and personally experiencing what wasn't working, what was working, where were people having problems. We dispersed pods out, and there was another 30, 40 minutes of road of people that couldn't get to those pods. And so we took supplies further down. We brought gas further down. We brought meals further down. At one point, we ended up setting up laundry and showers because people in Pornichet didn't have the basic necessities. We worked in supplies that were in a firehouse that had the roof ripped off of it. So, there's definitely more that we can do. Something as simple as working on Category 5 buildings in each community that have an opportunity for first responders to stay safely, to protect equipment, and have some supplies so that we can respond without having to work through getting through down trees, that you have resources in that region to work. But it's testing the system. It's making sure that we have a failover for the failover. And if we have something that's digital, what is the manual backup, and testing that. And so that's experience I have. That's stuff that I've worked with at companies to make sure that they're operational 24/7, because these companies supported the infrastructure and everything that we do every day in the parish. And so it's important to me to make sure you understand all aspects of it, the public side, the private side, what the first responders need, and then also communicating with all the resources that I've built up over the last 20 years throughout the state and throughout the country to make a phone call that says, I need an airplane that does this. I need a radio that does that. And also having things prepositioned. When I look at what the linemen do, it's like we need to take a lesson from them and have other things like gasoline and food and different things ready to go. And we could do this with partnerships through our region and with other regions to make sure that we're a fallback for them, they're a fallback for us, and that we test each other's systems. And so working together as a team, having conversations, talking about what works, what doesn't work, and working on improving that on a regular basis will give us the most success. It's just like in football. You know, before you go play a game, you practice, and you only go play as good in the game as you do in practice. So you got to make sure you put the right practice in, the right plays, the right people in the right positions so that you could achieve success in that win.
All right, let's go to the next question. Jason, you'll have the first crack at this one. And once again, in 2005, I got off the pulpit of the anchor desk and I got on the bully pulpit at the Civic Center. We had time for action. And we needed it. We were desperate. We were desperate as a people. We got hit by Katrina and Rita back to back. The storm surge was topping levees. We have footage in our archives that I hope we never see again. Made a call to Governor Blanco at the time. She brought us $10 million. And it wasn't just that. I mean, the people that have put together and become friends and become in charge of doing that, and let's call it a coalition, I guess, or a group, but the Tony Alphas, the Reggie Dupre's, the Gordy Doves, all the parish presidents. Don Schwab was parish president back then. All the engineers. I know I'm missing some people, but I'm going to shorten it just for TV. It's so important that the parish president of Terrebonne Parish knows what's happening with the levee systems, the water control structures, the Morganza to the Gulf. So, Jason, real quick, just explain your knowledge of the water control structures, the levees, and what would you do if elected? How would you keep it going? How would you keep it maintenance? And how would you keep it funded?
So again, going back off of my experience of the different entities and organizations that I've worked with and serviced, we did websites and data collection for the water systems and the levee gates, whether they're open or closed, and camera systems on these same floodgate control structures. So having an understanding of about how the technology works provides an opportunity. So everything that we're doing when it comes to monitoring the pump stations and everything that is around as the storm's going on, and as you work on a regular day basis, that stuff's great. And everybody knows I'm a tech guy, but tech isn't the end all be all. Tech doesn't fix all issues. A bad process without tech is going to be a bad process with tech. That's the experience that I have. That's what I bring to the table, is saying, maybe this isn't a technology solution. Maybe this is a process solution, or maybe this is training. It's something that we can do and we can see how tech integrates. But we have to make sure, like when our pump systems, if the SCADA system goes down, what's the manual backup? Having an understanding of saying, these are the pumps in the areas that if we don't get somebody on physically, this neighborhood will flood. And understanding how all that stuff works together. Being able to have data to make informed real-time decisions will help determine if somebody's house floods or not. And that's where it's important to make sure we got the right tech in the right places when we can, especially with employee shortages. There are opportunities to fill some of these gaps with tech and help people make their job easier. And it's not about replacing people with tech. It's about letting one person monitor two things instead of only being able to monitor one, and giving the skill sets. And with that, there's opportunities with drones and all the stuff with autonomous vessels. And there's so many opportunities that we can do, and we can be the leader in that. And so not only can we be the company, the place that has that kind of technology, we could be the parish that builds it, creates it, invents it. And when it comes to disaster recovery and everything that we've done, we are the experts. We've been through it so much. We can use our skill sets as a business to help other areas in the country and in the world to understand what we've been through and the struggles we still face 2 years later after Ida. The fact that we have 1,000 families that aren't living in their homes today is just troublesome to me. That's where I look and say, I feel like government has to be different. I don't understand why 1,000 families are not in their homes. There's got to be ways to do this bit better, more efficiently, 3D printed houses. Again, there's a lot of opportunities with tech in the right places to make jobs easier, to make create efficiencies and save money.
Mr. Guidry, same question.
Yeah, and I mean, computers are great, but they're not going to improve our levies and get our levies to the height that they need to be, so that way we can be at the full authorized height, get recognized by FEMA, and lower our flood insurance. That's where we also need to be. We've protected people from a storm, but we're protected from a storm that doesn't hit us, that hits, that hits just outside of us. We got to get to the final authorized height, so we're protected from any storm that comes our way. And to do that, well, I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the levee board. On the levee board, we had several missions to Washington, D.C., and one person that I worked very closely with was the senior staff leader for David Vitter. It was this guy called Garrett Graves. We built a very, very good relationship. Well, as we know, Garrett is our congressman right now. So I have Garrett's cell phone number. I can work very closely together with Garrett, and we'll work closely together with Garrett. I have a very close working relationship with our new governor, Jeff Landry. And we're going to work to continue to get some of the federal dollars that we're getting, but we also have a local match. So we're going to have to get that from our governor, as well as the local tax that we as citizens taxed ourselves to build that levee system. So we're going to use these resources, as well as community development block grants, which is something the parish gets that we can use in our levees. We as a parish participated in several reaches, like Reach E, for the Falgoux Canal area. That levee was paid for by community development block grant dollars that came to the parish. So we can use that as well. We're finally getting federal dollars. We're going to have to match the federal dollars. One thing that we're going to have to do is we need to take the levies that we have, and we're going to have to work on a credit with the Corps of Engineers, because we built all these levees and we are going to get credit for those levees. And that credit can be used toward our match for federal funds. But we have to negotiate with the Corps, and it's one thing we need to do pretty soon, is negotiate exactly what they're going to give us in credit for those levies. They're probably not going to give us 100%, but you know what? We get 100% of the protection right now. So we're going to use multiple sources, but relationships are very important. But understanding how government is funded is going to be the key to building our levees to their final authorized height and lower our flood insurance rates. We got to do that. We got to do it soon.
Jason?
So, I don't understand what the bashing is about the computers. Because the computers are the thing that runs the model that determines whether or not levies are recognized. And the problem we're fighting right now with FEMA is done by computer modeling. So it is something that we deal with every day that's going to determine. Right now, it's determining our insurance rates and flood insurance rates. And, if we're going to compare contact lists, I could sit here and list all the same cell numbers and phone numbers that I have also. It's not very necessarily about calling people. It's about working with them. And for example, I've worked with Tim Temple, the insurance commissioner elect, for the last 2 years on the Committee 100. And we've had steady conversations about things that could be done differently in insurance. And so, when I look at this whole process and I look at politics in general about, I know this person and I know that person, I feel like all I hear at these groundbreakings and all these things are all these different people's names to make sure everybody gets their credit. But I think people are tired of that. I think people are ready for things just to get done and not a pat on the back for somebody. We all know who's working. We all know who's elected. We all know who's going to get things done. But what we're frustrated with is getting things done. We want to see things happen faster. We want to see that people are held accountable. And that's what I'm about. I'm about whatever I'm going to talk about and whatever I'm going to do, I want you to hold me accountable as the residents, as the parish employees. I'm accountable to you. And when I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do everything I can to get it done, but I'm going to get the right people in the room to make sure that we get it done together.
Okay. Are we good there?
Yep.
Okay. Let's move to the next one. And let's see, I think Darren, you're up first, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not, y'all feel free to correct me.
I think he's next. Yeah.
I'm getting a little older. All right. Coastal lawsuits. We've been hearing about coastal lawsuits for a long time. I mean, it sort of dominates conversations. at lunch. You know, sometimes people see groups of people eating, they go, what were y'all talking about? What kind of deal y'all cutting? And it's not about deals you're cutting at lunch. You hear all kind of different things. And for a long time, we heard about coastal lawsuits. And I just want you all to look straight in those cameras we have set up for y'all and explain what you would do about coastal lawsuits, because I do realize there's both sides, but I think the people deserve and they have a right to know just where you would stand on that, because it is such a big topic. Aaron?
For the record, I am 100% against suing our oil and gas industry for things that our oil and gas industry did legally many, many years ago, followed the law many, many years ago. But because the rules have changed today, we're trying to sue an oil company for things they did legally there because the rules are different today. And these oil companies are not the same oil companies that dug a canal to build a well years and years ago. It's the company that bought the assets of the company that bought the company that bought the assets of that company. And so it's called legacy lawsuits. And nobody is going to invest in Terrebonne Parish if they know if they come in here, they may be sued for something that happened years ago that they had no control over. And so if we really want to stop new investment and kill our oil and gas industry, let's keep suing them. I'm going to fight it. I'm going to make sure every effort is putting into making sure that these lawsuits go away, because I want to attract business. I don't want to run it away.
All right. And let's go now to Mr. Jason Bergeron.
Everything I own, everybody I know, we all rely on oil and gas industry. And so it's important to make sure that we have opportunity, that we have where businesses can thrive. And so when it comes to lawsuits and suing oil companies, you know, we definitely have to make sure we have all the facts. And through the conversations I've had with oil and gas companies and organizations like SCA and the Chamber, you know, there's a strong push with us to make sure that we don't sue the oil and gas companies. But as we look at our new governor taking office, that's something he's going to be able to drive, and then we're going to work to do everything we can to support him and support the other parishes in our region to make sure we're all on the same page, that we're not only looking at the lawsuits, but that we're also looking at the future of oil and gas industry to make sure that our residents and our businesses have success for the next 100 years. You know, we're 100 years off of the oil and gas boom that created us, along with the fisheries boom. And so we got to make sure that we get everybody at the table, because I can't recollect a recent time that we had the oil and gas companies and all these different organizations at a table to have a conversation about how much it is affecting them doing work here. And so those are the kind of things that I want to do. I want to get people in the room and have open conversations about, what does this mean for you? What does the oil and gas company doing this mean for the parishes and the residents? What does the parish and the residents doing mean for oil and gas? I actually went testify in front of the EPA to support Louisiana's primacy for us to manage our own carbon capture laws and have the ability for us to do it. And what I said in that conversation is that we do things safer, more environmentally friendly, and more carbon neutral than any other place in the world. And the reason why we do that is the same people that are working hard on these oil and gas rigs are also the same people that are hunting and fishing in the same areas that these rigs affect. We provide 70% of the nation's reef fish to the country from the oil and gas rigs that are in the Gulf that would not be there without those oil and gas rigs. And so we're the expert at showing how we can work between the environment and with the oil and gas companies and making sure that we are all successful. And that's what I want. I want success for all of us.
All right, let's
Just to
go ahead.
just to clarify, he did not say he would fight to kill these oil lawsuits that we have. You know, I will. He said we would talk. I'm not going to talk. I'm going to do. That's what we need to do. We need to stand up for our oil and gas industry, and I will do that. I will take action. I'm not going to talk. We don't need talk. We need action.
So based on the information that I know, I got a question for you. When Freeport-McMoRan settles the case they have, and Terrebonne Parish doesn't have a seat at the table and receives zero money from that settlement, do you agree with that?
Well, let me tell you how lawsuits work, okay? If Terrebonne Parish settles with Freeport-McMoRan, that sends a message to the other industry. We need to have zero. You settle with one, then you're basically, right, admitting that we agree that these companies are responsible for damaging our marshes and wetlands and doing things that really, the problem is the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers built levees to stop the Mississippi from flooding us. That's great. It stopped us from flooding us, but it also prevented sediment from coming down. So that sediment is why we're dealing with the coastal erosion now, but you can't sue the federal government. So what people are trying to do is they're trying to sue the oil companies since you can't sue the federal government, even though the federal government is responsible for our coastal wetlands loss. You settle with one, you send a message to the industry, and that will immediately scare them off. You have to have a zero tolerance. Trust me, money will go where it knows there's less chance of liability. And the best way to chase them off is to start settling with companies, because they know when they get sued, that's going to be used in court. That's going to be used in the court of personal opinion, right? So you can't settle with one. And granted, there is one company, Freeport-McMoRan, that is trying to settle. So, you know, they want to quickly settle theirs. They don't care about our oil and gas industry. They don't care whether we grow or not. They just want to get out of their little liability. And then there's a push to try to help get them out of that liability. You know, they don't care what happens to us. I care. I love Terrebonne Parish. I want to grow our community. I want to grow our economy. I am not going to sue our oil and gas company. And accepting a settlement begins that process of taking down our oil industry. And I'm not going to do that.
So I'd like to be clear and make let everybody understand that I'm not talking about a lawsuit with Terrebonne Parish. I'm talking about a lawsuit in Cameron Parish that's currently being worked on right now, because I'm having the conversations and I want to understand every piece of information that I can so that I make an informed decision. I also understand that the governor-to-be has signed off on this. And so what I'm talking about, and the question that I ask is if Terrebonne Parish doesn't have a seat at the table, which a claim has been filed in Terrebonne Parish's behalf, are you saying that you do not want to be at that table when a settlement comes out? So that means that Terrebonne Parish would get $0 when the rest of the parishes throughout the entire coast get money, and Terrebonne Parish stands to get the second the most. I don't support the lawsuits. I'm not for the lawsuits. I'm going to go ahead and say that so we can make sure we clearly understand how I feel. I feel like when I talk about my dad being a diesel mechanic and all of my customers being oil and gas companies, that pays my bills and puts food on my table and roof over my head, I don't know how much more you can support our oil and gas industry besides go and speak to the EPA to make sure that we could do it more on our own without being managed by the federal government. I'm talking about making sure everybody has all the information and understanding where we stand, because this is stuff you don't hear about on a regular basis. This is the transparency that I'm talking about in government. So everybody has all the information so that they can make decisions. But I go back to my question, is if the rest of the coastal parishes get money from this, are you okay with Terrebonne Parish not getting it?
Now, you do realize that money, you're not going to build roads, you're not going to do anything else with that. That money has to be set in a pot, and it has to be used on certain projects that, you know, certain type of environmental projects. So we're not talking about, you know, money that's going to help the average, you know, customer, right? Or the average voter. You know, that's the kind of money we're talking about. The ripple effect it does affect the average citizen of Terrebonne Parish. And the reason why you got Cameron and these other parishes wanting to settle, and the reason they haven't settled, is because Terrebonne Parish is not a part of it. Do you think Freeport-McMoRan is going to settle if Terrebonne and Lafourche is left out? We are the most impacted parishes in coastal erosion. So we're the holdouts. And so we're going to continue to be the holdouts, because once we settle with one, it starts the domino effect. Again, if you want to run off people, the oil industry from Terrebonne Parish, right? Just start taking a part of these lawsuits and settlements that, by the way, Terrebonne Parish has not sued, and this government has not accepted any settlement, and we will not under a Darren Guidry administration.
All right, let's do this if we can. We'll move on. probably have a whole topic, a whole show just on
Probably
the
so.
coastal lawsuits. It's a very passionate subject. The capital projects that, and I've seen, I don't know, maybe I'm counting wrong, 7 or 8 parish presidents since I've opened, all have to deal with Baton Rouge and the legislation. And some are just so good. And I've watched them all from day one. My first parish president was Bubby Lyons. He was such a diplomat, just such a nice guy. And I'm not going to name them all and give you their strong points, but up to the point of Gordy Dove just bringing tremendous amounts of money with the help of the legislators. It's not just a parish president job. The governors have to buy into it. You got to be a hell of a salesperson when you're parish president. So that brings me to the next point. What gives either one of y'all that sales ability to walk up into the governor's office, Governor Jeff Landry, and say, look, we have been putting up with these crappy environments in Terrebonne Parish for a long time. We need your help. And what's going to make you walk out of his office with that check commitment or him saying no? Not sure who answered. Go ahead, Jason.
So, one thing that I've been able to do is build businesses by selling myself in the companies that I work for and manage. And so when I go into a conversation, to me, what I'm going to bring to the table is fresh ideas and a different way, a new way of looking at things. And so when you ask questions, when I look at, if you don't get a yes, you haven't presented the right information to get that yes. And so I put the onus on me and ownership on me to make sure I provide everything I need to get that yes. And to know that what I'm doing and what I'm talking about, I'm passionate and very knowledgeable about that subject. And so it's something when we look at the problem that we're dealing with in the shrimping industry right now. Through working on this project and working on projects over the last year to try to help the industry now and not wait till when I'm elected, we have a conversation about imports. And when you look at, we produce 200 million pounds of shrimp out of the Gulf Coast of the 1.6 billion pound demand. Whenever people talk about banning imports and you start talking about some shrimp, people eat less shrimp. So we want to make sure we don't do anything to decrease demand. And so at the same time, instead of having a conversation about banning, which I think is a viable option along with doing a tariff, we need to have a conversation about getting more market share. We need to make sure that Louisiana gets a bigger piece of the pie with the fact that we can produce a bigger piece of the pie. So when you start having a conversation that's different than the conversation that I traditionally had and provide information and data so that you can back up what you're trying to do, it's very hard to get that no. And again, with working with our residents, working with our companies and working with the employees of the parish and understanding the needs and everything that they would like to see us fix and do, and taking that knowledge and information along with the people that need to have a seat at the table and coming up with the ways that we can get all the ideas and everything in a room that says this is how we're going to do it and then go to the governor with that, it's almost impossible for him to say no.
All right. Mr. Guidry?
I think he just said he opposes a ban on antibiotic-infused seafood, which, by the way, every cold storage facility is full of foreign seafood right now coming to our country because Europe has banned antibiotic-infused seafood. And so all those foreign shrimp and seafood is coming here because they can't sell it in Europe because of health concerns. I think that's what I heard. But
I can correct that now if you would like.
You can. We'll get there. But your question concerned how we're going to get things done as far as capital outlay. And President Ronald Reagan said, you can get a lot accomplished if you don't care who gets the credit. First of all, you have to package things that, are in need in your community. But, credit is a big factor. And, there are ways to package things. I've done a lot of projects that I don't get the credit for. When we go at an event, I think it was said by Mr. Bergeron that, we announce all of the political figures when we have groundbreakings and things, and that we shouldn't do that he's not going to do that. Well, by announcing figures, what you're doing is building that relationship. You help giving those people credit. You're announcing special thanks to Tanner McGee. We just did a grand opening today of the soccer fields. By saying thank you, Tanner McGee, for doing that. I want to recognize him. I recognize Councilman John Amity, who is in the audience, because I had to work together with the other councilmen. You know, those type of things you may not think is important, but it is important to them. And so, you know, if we don't care who gets the credit, that is a big part of trying to help get your unfair share of capital outlay in Baton Rouge. You know, I just got $1.9 million to build a roundabout at Hollywood Road and Valhalla. That was a big issue in my district. I worked together with Representative Jerome Zarang. I haven't been out there touting that, you know, I got that. Just the opposite. I've been thanking Representative Zarang for getting it, right? Because he's the one who actually got the money. I'm just the one that came up with the idea and brought it to him. And so, you know, I think that's one of the biggest things. If you don't care who gets the credit, I think you can get a lot done.
Okay.
So, you know, to address the ban, because I've been involved in this process for the last 6 months to a year, I've already had conversations with our legislators about what a ban would look like. And from conversations from them, they're telling me we can't do a ban. I support a ban. I think a ban would be great. They're telling me we need to do a tariff. The question I then come back with is, why hadn't we done a tariff yet? And so that's when I talk about when I say a ban, because I'm not just starting this conversation. I've been working on this, and I've been having conversations with the shrimpers, with the docks, with the processors, with the government about what can we do to provide opportunities to our residents, because it seems like we're way past time trying to get this done. This should have been done 10 years ago, but it just seems like the career politicians just keep kicking the can down the road. And for not taking credit, I just heard I got $1.9 million. Sounds like credit to me.
Yeah, let me ask you this.
I
Go ahead.
gotta clarify something over these antibiotic infused seafood. When we're talking about a ban, just like Europe does, actually antibiotic infused seafood not only is a health concern, but it also gives an unfair advantage to some of these farms in China. What happens is we're catching fresh shrimp, and our shrimp we catch is based on whatever size we catch this year. We may catch a medium shrimp, and that may be the demand. And so we sell a whole lot of medium shrimp. Well, the next year, maybe the catch is smaller. Well, what they do is in China, they're farming it with their antibiotics, and they'll just farm a bunch of medium shrimp. And they'll pull them out at that right time. So they can now come in with all the medium shrimp, and we don't have the medium shrimp because we're wild caught, right? So that means that they have a competitive advantage because everybody wants the medium shrimp. They're not switching to the other shrimp. So not only does it cause that a problem health concerns, but it also gives an uncompetitive advantage. And the reason they use antibiotics is because they're farming. They're not catching it wild. And farm seafood is prone to a whole bunch of bacteria and various other things because they're in a
Let me
closed
jump
setting.
in. I had the lieutenant governor on this set many times. He told me, and I was quite shocked when he said it. He said, "Martin, we have not levied a fine on anyone breaking this law." And I said, "Not one fine?" He said, "Not one." I didn't go check his facts, but I think he's the lieutenant governor. He probably checked his facts before he came on the show. But if we're not leveling fines against people breaking the laws, then Jason, why do we have that law?
So what's interesting when you talk about that and you talk about a fine, that's a lot of times when you look at a tariff. And so right now, the ITC, as of yesterday, filed a suit with the fact that Ecuador dumped in the market. Now we're giving money as a government to Ecuador to farm, which is the first problem that I see. Then they turned around, and because China didn't want their shrimp, they dumped that shrimp into the market, which is causing the price problem we have right now. And so when I look at the fact that the basic level, the long-term goal for me is, why don't we subsidize shrimping like farming and fisheries like farming? Because right now, with the lawsuit that the ITC has filed, that money that gets collected doesn't go back to the shrimpers because it's considered a subsidy. So when you look at what we're trying to do now, and that's getting a bigger market share and branding and some other things that are a short-term plan, the long-term plan should be subsidies for fishing. And right now, I don't understand why that hadn't been done over the last 10 to 20 years, but that's what's stopping our fishermen from getting the money from whatever it be, a fine or a tariff. Even if we collect it, it's going to get dumped into general funds because the fishermen can't get it. and they're the ones that need it.
And then I'll let you finish on this one.
Well-
But to me, it's bigger than that. Is that we're putting laws on the books and we're not following them.
Well, no doubt. Our shrimpers are proud people. They like doing what they're doing. They've done it for generations. Their families have done it for generations. They don't want to do anything else. They're really not asking for a subsidy. They're not asking for a handout. What they're asking for is a fair price for their product. And they've got a great product, the best in the world right here in the Gulf. So we need to enforce our Louisiana seafood stamp on these restaurants that do that. And it hasn't been enforced. We need to make sure it is enforced. And that comes with those relationships we have together with our governor, state legislators. We need to put a lot of pressure on Baton Rouge because ultimately Baton Rouge is the only people who can police that. We can't as a parish do that. And so those are the relationships that we're going to work. We're going to, our seafood industry is hurting right now. And I mean, I want to help them. And giving them a handout is not what they're asking for. They're just asking help to get a fair price for what they've done all their life.
I have a question, just real quick
Go
question.
ahead, Jason.
If Mr. Guidry supports a ban, why haven't we done that at the council yet?
Because the council level can't ban it at a council level because we don't have that control. It has to be banned at a federal level. You should know that.
You can't ban shrimp in Terrebonne Parish?
We cannot ban shrimp in Terrebonne Parish because we don't have trade authority as a parish government. In fact, the state doesn't have trade authority in that capacity. It would only be the federal government that controls all imports and exports. It would be, just like, states have limited control over people coming across its border. The federal government needs to take care of that. We have no control over the shrimp coming over our borders as a parish. It's just not within our authority.
But as a state, we're talking about a $2 tariff. And so if the state can enforce a tariff, even if it's something that's symbolic, we could say as a parish that we only want Louisiana caught shrimp in our restaurants. And so that's where I think we should stand up and set the example for the rest of the country by taking care of Terrebonne Parish residents and Terrebonne Parish issues.
No, we can't legislate that, though. You cannot force local restaurants to serve Louisiana seafood only. That would create a lawsuit. We'd be sued. Then we pay all of our taxpayers money to sue something because we would be overstepping our authority. If we could do it, trust me, I would. And I looked into it, and we legally can't do it.
Let's jump to insurance. Wow. And if I haven't heard 1,000 people talking about insurance since Ida and the insurance, look, and I'm not picking on insurance companies. They're frustrated too. They don't know what to do. The citizens, their insurance rates sometimes are bigger than the mortgage. People are desperate. I'm worried about people. If you can self-insure, you're going to make it through. But a lot of people, when they sign that mortgage at the bank, got to have insurance. So what would you do as parish president? And I know this gets to a state level and a federal level, but the parish president is a strong voice. And when we're going to have a strong delegation in the federal area now. We've seen what's happened in Washington, in the last couple of days. We as powerful as you're going to get. If you had to sit down with all our new leaders from Louisiana, what would you tell them to make sure Terrebonne Parish, and we're talking other areas too, but Terrebonne Parish gets this insurance problem straight?
Well, if I talk to our federal delegation, the first thing I would tell them is we need to do away with flood zones. Flood zones make no sense. What we need to have is base flood elevations, where if you elevate to this base flood elevation, you're not required to buy insurance. Right now, we have two properties side by side. One elevates 5 feet higher than the other. This one is required to have flood insurance forever because they're in a flood zone, but this one's not, so they're not required to have insurance. Makes no sense. So we need to eliminate flood zones and instead do flood elevations. And that gives you an incentive. Hey, I wouldn't mind spending extra money elevating a new home that I'm going to buy if I knew I wouldn't have to buy flood insurance, and that would make my property more valuable. If I'd sell it to somebody, they wouldn't be required to have insurance. So I think we need to start getting away from these flood map systems that we have. And we are trying to fix the maps. We're challenging them. As we speak, we're challenging these maps. But the Congress can fix it in a heartbeat by just doing away with flood zones and do it on base flood elevations.
Jason?
So I've had this conversation many times throughout this campaign, and it goes back to doing things differently in government. I've heard many times that FEMA just needs to be redone. And so if we're going to make some changes with the power that we have in Washington, D.C. now, that's where we need to start. The fact that we still call it flood insurance, because we're dealing with two crises right now, one with homeowners and the second with flood insurance. But when you look at insurance, it's about spreading the risk. And so with flood insurance, the fact that it's called flood insurance, and I like to let's take Louisiana out of play, and let's talk about California. California had a rain event, and 80% of the homes that flooded didn't have flood insurance because they never flood. And so if we switch over to what I call a disaster plan, where it covers flood, fire, hurricane, earthquake, blizzard, tornado, locust, whatever it is, you get more people in the systems and the rates come down. And so that's one of the things we could do. FEMA's issue is that they've paid out $96 billion and only collected $60 billion. But they're also limiting the way that they can collect that money. And by doing risk rating 2.0, they raised the rates and 1 million homes dropped out immediately. That just shows you what they're doing is not working. But right now, we can't even get access to that information. They won't have a conversation with the leaders that we have in our delegation. And so we got to make sure that we turn around and redo FEMA. And from a local perspective with homeowners, we're going to have a new insurance commissioner. That guy's got 25 years experience in the insurance industry. He's going to make the largest, fastest impact when it comes to insurance and being affordable by working better with insurance companies. The other two things are going to be that we don't have storms, and they do the LOMAR, which is the letter of map removal, which is taking places that recognize the flood level, the maps, recognize the levees, recognize the pump stations and everything. And those are the paths to reduce and address the insurance crisis that we're in right now.
Real quick, just so
One
you
last
can
thing.
both follow up, let me ask you, and you could probably follow up with this question. Why can't we co-op insurance unless it's just illegal? And I'm not a lawyer. I'd have to talk to Jules Aber or somebody on this. But why can't Louisiana team up with Texas, team up with Alabama, Mississippi, all these coastal states, and say, let's put a plan together and have some buying power and be able to go to the insurance companies and entice them?
That's actually a plan that I had pitched in 2011. I ran for Louisiana State Senate. And that was one of the proposals that I had put out there was I was going to work together with the neighboring coastal parishes in the Gulf and try to create a reinsurance program, an insurance pool from the different states. And so that way we could do a piece of our own reinsurance, because insurance companies only insure a small amount, and then they buy insurance if it goes over a certain amount. And that's the where all the increase is coming. And so if we are able to increase that amount before we have to go to the reinsurance market, it would lower it down. I think that's a great idea. I think it's something, that we need to propose to our current legislators. But, I kind of talked to them about the legislators back then, but, nothing's really happened with it. But what I wanted to mention was the fact that we as a parish have joined the Attorney General, and we are suing FEMA over its risk rating 2.0, how it calculates its rates, because it's been raising people's insurance rates 18% a year, and that's going to go on for 30 years. And so we're hoping that we can get a stay on that, stop all increases in insurance, and maybe even roll some back until we can challenge the way they calculate their insurance, because they don't include our levees, pumps, and floodgates into their calculations, and they need to do that. I wanted to mention that lawsuit that we're Terrebonne Parish as a council, we voted to join the Attorney General in that lawsuit.
Jason, last word on that topic.
So, when you look at doing things differently, I think pooling and looking at different opportunities are all great options. The fact that we're fighting on a medical side of insurance where you have Blue Cross Louisiana versus Blue Cross Texas. If those two had to compete against each other, you would see lower insurance rates. And so, insurance as a whole can definitely do some things differently and better. To them, it's a return on investment. It's them making money for their shareholders. And so to me, it's like having a conversation with insurance companies that said, while we're replacing all these roofs, why don't we put them fortified so that you might invest another $1,000 or $2,000 now, but you're not having to change the roof for another 30 to 40 years. And so through my conversations with Tim Temple, I asked them a question when it came to our school districts, because the insurance commissioner determines how much insurance the school district carries. We had $10 million insurance and $200 million worth of damage in Terrebonne Parish alone. And so I would ask them the question that says, why can't we take all the money that each school district invests in insurance, put it into a pooled plan, and get better coverage for the current spend? And he thought that was a great idea. And that's the kind of conversations that we needed to have with government officials and with other organizations to do some things differently. And when I talk about the fact, when we're suing FEMA 2.0, I want to restructure FEMA as a whole. And as you look at what FEMA's responsibilities and what their mission are, and making sure that, they said in this lawsuit that they are not responsible for affordable insurance. And the judge asked them, well, you're responsible for people being homeless? We got to make sure everybody understands the fight that we have going on. We got to make that voice heard across the nation so everybody understands. And look, there are 10 states in that lawsuit. There are more than 10 states dealing with flood insurance problems. We got to group together, and we got to make sure that our voice is heard and that they do what's best for the citizens, which is what a government is supposed to do.
Okay, Jason, we'll let you lead off with this one. About 20 minutes left. We'll try to get a few more questions in. When Terrebonne's budget is set, we all know that sometimes things change or a new project pops up or forgot that one. And we're going to have a budget amendment. So explain to the audience in your own words, how do the budget amendments work? And how would you approach, if you needed additional money from the project, how would you first approach the council?
So the first thing I want to do when I get in office is to definitely look at some efficiencies, because as people may not realize, the budget for next year is already set. They've been working on it this year. It's going to be passed, and that's the budget that we're going to have to work in and live with. So getting in office day one, it's going to be looking at efficiencies and spends and things that we can do to take the money we currently have and spend it more efficiently. So by doing that, there's actually less of a requirement to go for that budget amendment, but it is something that has to be presented to the council, and they have to approve that amendment and for us to move forward. And so at the same time of doing that and having the transparency that our budget's on the website and everybody understands how much we collect and how much money we spend, when we have a conversation about sales taxes being down, well, they're down post-hurricane, which is very common. But if you look at the last 5 years, we're actually on par for sales tax collections that we've had over the last 5 years. And so by having that transparency and letting people know related to the millage rededication that we just did, and not many people realizing that we were only paying 0.66 of the 1.66 mills. And so that when you voted for that rededication, you are actually going to get charged a mill more than you were before. Many people didn't realize that. And so to me, it's about being transparent with the council and being transparent with the residents, because I knew council people that didn't know that millage was coming up and didn't know that millage was going to be a new spend. So I feel like we need to make sure, with constitutional amendments, things need to be clear. It shouldn't be a vote for or a vote against. We need to be very clear in laying out what our plans are, what we're trying to do, and be honest with the public and be honest with the council and have them a part of the process to make us all successful, to spend the money we have more efficiently so that we can work on projects that are important to our region.
All right, Darren?
Well, I can't believe he talked bad about the tax that's going to put school resource officers in all of our schools when we just got through hearing what happened last night in Maine, where 18, 20 people are killed, maybe even more, because of an active shooter situation. We got to protect our schools. I thank the voters thank you for approving that, because that is, we have to protect our children. I mean, our children are our future. If we can't protect our children as a community, then, we're lost. And so thank you for approving that rededication. And now we can put resource officers in every schools, and we intend to do that. Now, as far as the budget, we are currently working on, we're reviewing the budget right now as a council. But as far as a budget being set, we can change that budget with a budget amendment. Now, I'm going to be parish president. I'm not stressing too much over the P's and Q's of this particular budget because I know we can change it with 5 council people and an amendment. And so I'm going to work together with the council. We're going to look at all the budgets. We're going to try to be very, very, very efficient as a government. And so that means we're going to have to move money from one account to the other if we want to accomplish new things and get new things built. So we're going to have budget amendments. We're going to put those together and put those in front of the council as an ordinance. And in case people didn't know, you have to present that as an ordinance. You got to hold it over 2 weeks. You have a public hearing. So the public gets a chance to hear all of our budget amendments. They get to weigh in on it. If they disagree with the budget amendments, then so be it. But I think budget amendments are great. It really gives the general public an opportunity to come and weigh in on what we're doing and see if what we're moving money, if it's the right thing. The budgets themselves, right now we're having public hearings. If you see anything in our budget, and our budget is published, come to our council meeting, come to our public hearings, and we're open. We're also audited every year, so that way, independent auditor comes in and says, "Did you spend money properly? Were there any findings?" And we just got the audit for 2022, and it showed no significant findings, no findings whatsoever. So that means our independent auditors that came look say that we are doing a good job.
All right.
I'd like to address
Go ahead, Jay.
Mr. Guidry trying to spin my words to saying I don't support something, because I did not say that. But that's what we're used to with career politicians and trying to spin the narrative. I said that we're going to pay a mill more than we did. And on top of that, we're going to collect that money in 2024, and that money is not going to be available till 2025. My question is what are we going to do to address school safety in 2024? And so all I want to do is give information to people so they can make informed decisions, because I got 100 calls and text messages and Facebook messages because I posted about both the constitutional amendments and this millage adjustment on my Facebook page for my campaign to inform people that it was even coming up. And when I had conversation with people that this was going to affect that didn't know anything about it, it made me dig into it more and understand, what are we doing? Why are we doing? I support school safety. It's kind of crazy I even have to say that, but I do support school safety. But my question is, what are we going to do in 2024? Because the money's not going to be available till 2025.
All right, let's jump to this if we can, because like I said, remember doing debates with Bubby Lines and Barry Bonvillain way back in the day. And rumors were carried by carrier pigeons, it seems, back in those days. We've come a long way, but with technology, a rumor can hit the send button, rumors out, you can't get it back. And it really is, it's sort of unfair to anyone who puts their name up for public office. But I want to give you all an opportunity, just at least one rumor that really irked you, got under your skin, that you want to look in the camera and tell the public, it didn't happen, it's not true. I want to set the record straight with the public. What would it be?
Is this me first?
Go ahead. Take your pick.
I mean, there's so many of them. Mostly are minor. Most of them are absolutely silly. I heard one just yesterday. One of the employees told somebody that they heard that I was going to cut their salary. And it's I said, come on. I mean, that's getting pretty nitpicky as far as rumors, but there are a lot of rumors out there. Just don't believe everything you hear. Check it for yourself. I'm in the newspaper business. Was in the newspaper business. If we don't hear it from 3 separate independent sources, it's a rumor. So just keep that in mind. If you hear it from one person who heard it from another person who said it, then odds are it's a rumor. So, if you go by the 3 times rule, 3 direct sources, not indirect sources, then maybe there's some truth in it.
Okay. Jason?
We wouldn't have enough carrier pigeons to carry the rumors that have been spread about me. And, it's words that I've used on this stage. 90-second answer has been spun. And so, I'm going to address all the rumors. If you hadn't heard it come out of my mouth, it's not true. I've had a consistent message throughout this entire campaign. I talk about fairness. I talk about doing what's best for the people. I talk about giving my heart to the parish and wanting things just to be better. So that's what I'm about. I've released videos time and time again on my Facebook page that not only give what I'm gonna do, but how I'm gonna do it, the actual plans. And then I get beat up over some of those plans or one of those plans because I had an idea. You know, I look for a Terrebonne Parish that we can have ideas, that people don't think their questions are stupid, that people think their voice is heard, that people think their vote counts, and that you could bring up an idea and not get bashed about it, because all it is an idea. Let's throw stuff on the wall. Let's see what sticks. I'd rather make the wrong decision, not make a decision at all. And I'm ready to make the tough decisions, and I'm ready to move Terrebonne Parish forward. And so I question, and this is what I say. If you've heard a rumor, call me. I've shared my number. You could reach me at any time, and we can have a conversation with you and that person that's spreading that rumor. But you're going to see that nobody wants to have that conversation. And I'm fighting the political machine as the political outsider. And this whole process is just crazy what it takes and what people try to do to stop somebody that has Terrebonne Parish's best interest in mind to make our parish better and try to turn that into something that it's not.
Okay. Let's do this then, because we have about 10 minutes left. And y'all both made good points, and that's why I didn't want the clock. Now, a couple of people who were around when it was 9 members, they're going to say, well, why you didn't give us all this time? Well, we'd have been here till morning, okay? But, and I'm glad y'all get to expound on some of the things that y'all answer, because it's important, because once you get past that 90-second part, you can still say a lot more. I guess my point is this. Y'all both are in this parish. This parish has to move forward. Whoever wins, parish has to get behind whoever wins. It can be knocked down, drag out, and then there's a little time for the person who's not successful to go lick their wounds and just try to get back up and go fighting again. My point is this. What would be your commitment? And I know y'all both going to say, yeah, well, we're going to win. But here's my question. If either one of you is not on the winning side, what is your commitment to people watching on what you're going to do to help the person sitting right next to you tonight to make sure this parish is put number one for those people watching y'all on camera tonight?
This is me this time?
Yeah, you, Jason, you lead
on. Look, I've been working for the parish, with the parish for the last 20 years. When I see an issue or see a need, I address it. That's what I'm going to continue to do. And I challenge everybody else that has run for office or that has a problem with something to get involved. Because the problem is we don't have enough people involved. We have people that are passionate. We have people that want change, but we can't count on somebody else. It's no different than whenever you pass by a blighted building or pass by a piece of trash that's on the ground or pass somebody that's in need. You got to take the minute to stop and say, what can I do to help? How can I make this better? Because everybody can pass by and think that somebody else is going to take care of it. But we have responsibilities as citizens to go through this process and do something as simple as vote, a right that was given to us by people that have died for our country. We owe them that much to go out and vote and to make sure that our voice is heard and get involved. We need people on committees. We can't fill recreation boards and fire boards. We can't fill that right now. And part of the problem, I think, is because of people being frustrated with government. Well, the way you change it is you get involved and you make it better. And I challenge everybody, whoever's running or not running, to think about that and look and see, even if it's a little bit, it doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be running an organization. It could be involved in helping raising money for somebody that needs a pair of shoes or buying them a pair of shoes. Opening a door from somebody, returning your buggy to where it goes at the grocery store. Those are the little things. And with all those little things, we can be a better parish. And I'm committed to making our parish better in any way that I can serve and help, like I have been doing for the last 20 years.
Darren?
Well, in 2011, I mentioned that I ran for Louisiana State Senate. I ran against Senator Brett Allain, and I didn't know Brett. I was just running for the position, not against Brett. Brett got elected. I turned around and supported him 1,000%, did everything I could to help him. In fact, he made a donation to my campaign and has been a big supporter of mine. So, I appreciate that. I appreciate Mr. Bergeron putting his name up to run. As he mentioned, it's not an easy thing. You and your family runs for it as well as you. And I think when bad things are said about me, my wife gets more upset than I do. And I'm sure, Mr. Bergeron would probably agree. Your family, really, they take it harder. We have thick skin. We signed up for this. I have property. People tried to criticize some of the people in some of my properties. They didn't run for this. I ran for this. And so, I will be there. I'm not going away. I'm not leaving Terrebonne Parish. I love Terrebonne Parish. I just want to make it better. That's why I'm running for parish president. I'm not term limited. I could run for council reelection, but it's just too important who becomes the next parish president. And, I'll be there, no matter what. And so I thank all of those, and I thank all 7 candidates, by the way, who did run, because they put their name out there. They showed up for the forums. They did what they needed to do. The voters spoke, and, I open myself to be available for whoever gets elected to any public office.
All right. Final question, because we got about 5 minutes left. And once again, this is running live on Facebook and YouTube. It'll be re-aired several times on HTV starting tonight on Thursday at 7 p.m. Just final question. So much has been said about it. I can go once again back to the Bobby Lines, the Barry Bonvillans, the Teddy Dewey, the Don Schwabs, the Michelle Claudes, Bobby Bergeron, Gordy Dove. I've always asked them, who's going to be your administration? Everyone looks at me sometimes. Some of them answered me. Some of them go, well, I haven't decided yet. But that is one of the big rumors from both of y'all. Who's going to be y'all administrations? Who's going to lead your team? Who's going to do that? And the public has asked that quite a bit. So let me ask, Darren, I'll ask you first. Any decisions have been made? Because to be honest, some of these people in government live paycheck to paycheck.
Right. So
I'm asking sort of on behalf of them and in defense of them. I think they at least deserve an answer. Any choices yet?
What I am going to work with, we talked about the employees of Terrebonne Parish. I think we owe it to them to work with the employees that we have in Terrebonne Parish. We're going to have new systems. We're going to do things new ways. It's not going to be exactly the same administration we have, because my ideas are different. We are going to make changes to this government. And I know a lot of the people currently in this parish can make those changes. There may be a few who can't, but that's going to be them deciding that, and that'll become evident. But I believe we owe it to the employees whose livelihood, whose insurance, who everything, we need to owe it to them to give them a chance. And so, I intend to try to give our employees a chance. Contractors, we're going to look at our contractors very carefully. That's a different story, right? Because contractors have multiple people they do business with, not just Terrebonne Parish. But the employees, the W-2 employees of Terrebonne Parish, we need to take care of them. And so I'm going to try to work with the people that we have, and we'll have new systems, and hopefully everybody can come along. I pray that happens.
All right. Jason, if you could do it in about 2 minutes and give us 30 to close the show, I'd appreciate it. Go ahead.
So, one of the things I do for a living is I set up employees for success so that you could then hold them accountable. That's been the conversation I've had with a lot of people when it comes to complaining about whether it's trash, grass, whatever it is. We have to make sure we report it. We got to make sure that people know so they could be successful. And so, as much as I've tried to have conversations with everybody in the parish, I've been limited in being able to do that. And so I've had as many conversations as I can. And those conversations are to help understand what the processes are and what people are dealing with now. What are their job descriptions? What do they think need to change? What do they would like to keep the same? And so I'm going to evaluate. I want to make sure that we got the best and brightest and the most hardworking people managing and working in our parish. And I know we have a lot of passionate and hardworking people now. And so to have those conversations and make sure we pick the right people for the job, whether it's somebody new or somebody that stays, is again something I do every day. And I take that very seriously, but I want to change the way we evaluate people and provide opportunities for people to be more successful faster. And again, from implementing that solution inside of companies, I'm going to put that solution into our parish, and we're going to make sure that people have measurable things they're held accountable against, and that we set them up for success.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank y'all. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We got a lot of substance in. We got a lot of new questions. I appreciate both of you running for parish president. It's a tough position. I think I can say I've interviewed many parish presidents over the years, and I have seen them go through some turmoil. But I've also seen the good parts of being parish president. And it's a tough job. If somebody's garbage can is not picked up the right way, you will get a call at 11 o'clock at night, and you will certainly be tested from time to time. But thank you for coming. Thank you for being transparent to the people of Terrebonne Parish. I've enjoyed sitting down with both of you all, and I say good luck to both of y'all. And to the victor goes the spoils, and I'm sure I'll be seeing both of y'all around town. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank
Thank you for having
Go
us.
vote.
All right, there you have it. There you have it right here from the Lorraine Falls Studios in Houma, Louisiana. And we'll sign off right now. Thanks for joining us.